let's turn our attention to the Notting Hill Carnival. Well, it's in September every year, isn't it? It's that bank holiday, isn't it? Or the end of August. It turns out that an awful lot of people who don't want to go to it anymore include the police, who are often there having to actually deal with the extraordinary level of criminality that now exists. Sam Armstrong, do you ever go? Have you ever been to? Do you ever go to the Notting Hill Carnival?
It will surprise you.
In your suit?
It will surprise you to learn it's not exactly my scene.
I used to go years ago, but
I think it's slightly different now to how it once was.
It has got a lot bigger and a lot more dangerous.
I certainly can't blame the police, all of whom seem to have to tolerate appalling violence and criminality, and the moment they seek to do anything to keep it under control, drag through the awful scenes of being accused of racism and worse.
Yes, yeah. Although interestingly, actually, you see all the videos of women often cavorting with police officers. You think, wow, if the other way round, that would be a problem. Because talking about Greg Wallace, don't forget we will go to more of your calls about that. 0344 499 1000. Lots of disagreement on Greg Wallace's future. But according to a poll of Metropolitan Police officers who answered the survey, nearly 90%, so nearly 9 out of 10, said they believe that Notting Hill Carnival is a war zone, and they would, quote, rather crawl naked through broken glass than be on duty at it, because they say basically it is dangerous and officers are treated as lambs to the slaughter. One officer said the police operation there, where more than 2 million people turn up in a very crowded part of West London, is, they say, dangerous. He said the operation is overstretched, ineffective, and an exercise in self-torture. Well, let's talk about this with Peter Bleksley, former Metropolitan Police detective. Good morning to you, Peter.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Now, look, I mean, there's no doubt at all it's getting more dangerous. We are talking about, 2 murders last year, a few months ago, 8 stabbings and 349 arrests, and 61 officers assaulted. And by the way, most of those arrests weren't just for sort of, someone was smoking cannabis. They ignore all that. They're for much more serious offences, largely carrying offensive weapons. I wouldn't go there. I've advised my daughter and her friends not to go there. I don't think it's safe anymore. But it's the fact that the police don't even feel safe is pretty damaging.
Yeah, and let's bear in mind that 7,000 police officers are deployed to police this event. Yeah. That is a greater number than the amount that put down the rioting during the summer. On that occasion, 6,000 officers were deployed. The Notting Hill Carnival requires more officers. And still, it's an orgy of violence with murder and other bloodshed and police officers hating every single minute of it. Yeah. Now, I'm not for banning it, but what I think should happen now is that it should be moved to the confines of Hyde Park and become a ticketed event. Yeah. At Hyde Park, you can still have the processional element of it, which is so important because you've got bridle paths and roadways and you can put down mobile tracking, but you can fence it, you can keep it safe, you can monitor the flow of people in and out of it, because the Notting Hill Carnival essentially is a fatal crush of many, many people.
Yeah, the reason I stopped going some years back, about 20 years ago, was I got caught in a crush in a narrow bit of road, and I thought frankly, it was a matter of luck that no one had died that day. I thought this is mental, this isn't safe anymore. But it's a very different feel, isn't it? Because it's literally, these are residential streets, and I know people who have places around there, and whether it's people have a council flat, have a super duper, white stuccoed mansion, they board up their homes, people are urinating, defecating, throwing up, having sex, in there, on their stairs and their stairwells. It's most people who live there are horrified, and they either go away if they board up and go away, or if they can't, they basically board up and then just basically try and protect their home. People feel, you can say, oh, well, you shouldn't move there. Well, it wasn't so big. 20 years ago, it wasn't so big. It has grown out of all control, hasn't it?
And a young work colleague that I know was returning home to her rented property on the Tuesday after you think that all mayhem would have disappeared and the worst of it would have been packed up and gone away. And she said the stench of urine as she walked down the streets to her rented apartment was absolutely vomit-inducing.
It's an absolute free-for-all. It would change the feel of the event, but I can't imagine any other event being allowed to continue like this. And again, it's a wonderful celebration of Caribbean culture. Yeah, lovely, lovely. But it's no longer safe. And people are getting stabbed. People are getting injured. People are getting raped. People have got deadly weapons. It's impossible to police that many streets with that many people safely, isn't it?
And I very much like your expression, impossible to police, because let's remember, from 2023, there is currently an unsolved murder where a young man who was soon to become a father was sliced to death, and nobody's been caught for that crime. So your word impossible is apt and precise.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why police feel that way. And again, they say they're like lambs to the slaughter. It's also, among this poll, concern about cannabis effectively being decriminalised. Basically, this poll found that 2/3 of officers think that the use of the Class B drug is practically permissible on streets, and offenders are regularly let off with a slap on the wrist. So no one's concerned about it anymore. Now, I'm very anti all drugs. I just don't think they're good for anybody, and I don't think we should encourage them. But it is just the case now. No one's bothered. I mean, if you're just carrying enough for yourself, you're clearly not a dealer. It is pretty much, to all intents and purposes, legalised, isn't it?
Walk through almost any suburban, urban, inner city street in London or length and breadth of the country when the weather's decent, and you will quite likely get a waft of cannabis blown in your direction at some point. Its use is widespread. This survey admits that 3 million people use it, and they admit that that's not even an accurate figure. It will probably be higher than that. I personally abhor all drugs. I think people that are on them are extremely tiresome, boring.
That's one of my main issues. They don't realise how dull they are.
Yeah, let alone all the other damage it can do. And believe you me, I had an uncomfortably close relationship with drugs back in the day when I was too stupid to know better. Yeah. But what I really, really would like to see, and this is not mainstream thinking, but I'm sure that it will be perhaps long after I've turned my toes up, we need to get a grip on this illegal, unregulated industry. It's the fourth biggest industry in the world. Yeah. We let the criminals make all the profits out of it, and we don't tax it.
Yeah, I think that the evidence actually from a lot of countries where they have legalised it is actually not as cut and dry, that it makes it safer and regulates it and provides the tax duty. But I'm sure we'll debate that on another day. Peter Bleksley, so good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.